Hey there, welcome. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Let's see how much we can cram into today's episode. Getting right off the bat, top story, ongoing strife. You're not going to believe this. They're not getting along in the Middle East. I know it's usually such a calm, cool, collected part of the world, but we are... It's so weird that all this is telegraphed. It's so weird that Saturday we had a 3-hour heads up on an attack from Iran to Israel. That's not normal. And so now we have Israel saying, yeah, we know what we're going to do in retaliation. Okay, well, are you doing it? Well, no, not right now. Well, what are you going to tell us what it is? No, we're not going to tell you what it is. Well, then why'd you mention it at all? I don't know. I don't know why they even mentioned it at all. Maybe my first guest knows. Joe Cardinale back on the show. Welcome back. What do you think?
Good afternoon, James. How are you, bud?
Let me ask you a very unfair question and just speculate and try and predict the future. What do you think the next step in this back and forth between Iran and Israel is going to be?
Well, I firmly believe Israel is going to retaliate in some way. But you know what it is? It's almost like everything today has got to be like, oh, what's their next move? I mean, you never heard this before. I mean, that's why it's called intelligence, all right? And that's why you keep it close to the vest when you need to do these things. You don't telegraph to your opponent what you're going to do, all right? You just do it. Now, because of this, I'm sure Israel is picking a time, a place and time of their choosing and when they want to do it because, as we all know, the element of surprise is everything, just like it was to them. So, let's just think about that. Why should they tell anybody what they're doing? Because you're going to have the president's going to turn around and say, well, let me tell them one word. Don't. That's going to be a don't.
Don't.
That word is so scary.
Don't. Yeah, and it's coming out of Mr. McGee.
And you know what? Yeah, that's funny. And then when he whispers it, it's even better. Don't do it. Come on, give me a break with this already. It's enough. It's almost like watching the Hunger Games movie. Like, oh, what can we see now on television? Oh, this is really good. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is wartime for Israel. If this is happening with anybody else, especially the United States, Israel would not step in and say, listen, I don't think you should do that. They've always supported us. That's why our strategic location is over there for them. So, I mean, they really got to think about what they want to do with appeasing all these idiots that block bridges and everything, too. So,
well, what we're hoping for is the Goldilocks strike. We saw Trump do it when Iran flared up when he was in power. And the trick is to not do something so big that it sparks an even bigger reaction or triggers a war or makes you look like the bad guy. But also it has to be strong enough that they get the message. Trump did that with killing Soleimani, one of their generals. It looks like Israel took the same page out of the playbook and killed one of their generals in that Syrian airstrike. And I think it might pretty much just be done. If all Iran is going to do is lob a bunch of worthless drones and missiles that don't even hit their target, maybe there shouldn't be a big response.
No, you're right. There shouldn't be a big response. But the thing is, they did that and they said, well, look at this. So you know what? And it's almost like, and here's the other side of this that really turns my stomach, is when they go on TV and they go, well, they did 1,000 of them and it really didn't do anything. So, Iran's going to turn around with all their proxies and everybody backing them up who they are because we can see where they're made. And they're going to say, okay, next time let's send 2,000 or let's send 3,000. So at what point does it stop? And then they keep threatening, like, oh, we'll use bigger and better weapons. Well, that's why everybody has to sit down and say, well, let's get something straight. If you do that, we're going to get you from every angle, but you got to have everybody's backing for that. And when your own president turns around and says, I don't know if we should really do that. I mean, come on, it's enough already. Either you take Israel's back or you don't. One or the other. There's no in between here.
So, Joe Cardinale,
the snake off.
What do you think a Goldilocks strike would be? What could it look like?
I mean, I think what they're doing is, and they've made a couple of mistakes because a couple of civilians did get killed in one of the strikes. But when you have your intel, and the intel is to the point where today you can strategically pinpoint a location of one of your adversaries, and you do that and you minimize the casualties on it, I mean, that's the great way of doing it. But you're taking out people that are planning danger for many other people. Many other deaths are going to occur because it is one person, like Soleimani. All right, so you saw what happened with that. It was a quick turnaround for that. But once again, you had a president that was steadfast in his message. This guy is telling the other side, don't, and now he's turning around telling Israel, don't. And, he's going back and forth, don't. It's enough already. It's enough. I don't know who's advising him, but they got to make a stance one way or the other. oh, we'll give them the munitions to do this, but we don't want them to use those munitions in this particular way. So, I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
All right, well, Joe Cardinale, you have an entire career being in the NYPD. Then I've seen you do some great media since then. I love it, your appearances when I see you on TV. Now you're running for office. What is that like? I'm always interested to talk to someone who hasn't been a politician their entire life, who did other things and came into politics and for the first time. What is unexpected? What does the common person need to know about this experience?
Well, you just hit a key word there, is common. My message to everybody is vote common sense. Stop voting party line. All right, just vote common sense. If all this makes sense to you, what we just discussed, and not only that, this border issue where illegal migrants are getting in New York City, they're earmarking $2.4 billion for them, and yet the school taxes are going to be through the roof, and they're cutting funding for us. And then when you have bail reform, which is outright the leading cause for crime going up across this nation, when you have the likes of that, so people have to vote with common sense. And you know what? I really said it. Getting into this game, politics is a dirty game. But here's the biggest thing about it, though. I mean, people have to realize that a lot of work goes into these campaigns. And you try to be yourself, but no matter what statement you make, it's political. So I understand that, and I don't mind that. I just did a big interview with Forbes magazine, and they have it on YouTube and on Twitter. But I just speak my mind and just go across the way I have to go across and just tell people, vote common sense. Get the message across, get it across quick, and stick to the issues. Don't cloud it with anything else.
Yeah, and for most of the people listening right now, don't get excited. We're not going to get a chance to vote for him. He's running for the state assembly in New York, so that's a little out of most of our jurisdictions around here. But we wish you well, Joe.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for being on the James Show yet again. What do you think Israel should do? What do you think the strike should be? I'm really asking you, put on your risk hat, put on your civilization or Nobunga's ambition or one of those little take over the world kind of games. What do you think the strike should be? What's a Goldilocks strike? General, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I will give you my Iran strategy next on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, you're the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military forces and all the power that has to bear. What would your response be? What would your response be if you were running Israel? What if you were in Bibi Netanyahu's shoes? What if you were just some omniscient power that be, and this is all a Matrix-style video game, and you got to choose the strategy out of a drop-down menu like you're playing an RPG? What would you do? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Now, I think a lot of people would be thinking 100% militarily, and that's a mistake. There does need to be a military component to the response, but that will do something right now. If you don't address some of these other issues, these sort of cultural society issues, then you're going to be fighting this again next year and in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, for generations until you can get a real change. And so what kind of change do you want? Well, if you can identify the real problem of what's going on in Iran, it's the government, just like most countries. But they have a special goof up in Iran that happened just because of that revolution in 1979. And they have the rare, super rare, left on earth theocracy. Used to be not that rare in ancient times, but now you have the worst of two worlds. You have a socialistic theocracy. And it's like, what does that matter? Oh, please. You know it matters. It's just also helpful that, theocrats and socialists supposed to both agree that the government should have control over the means of production. They should have a lot of say-so in what gets made and who it's sold to and at what price and if this business should be open or I can just magically close that business by waving my wand. They like that power. All authoritarians like that power. All dictators like that power. And the socialist theocracy, the only worst form of government we see on planet Earth right now is the communist theocracy of North Korea. Anyway. So if that's the original problem, well, that means the solution, it's not easy, and it's actually kind of simple. It's just difficult because the Iranian people are not a problem. Before this theocracy got into power, they were running around in business suits. They had ties. If you went to the beach, the women would be wearing bikinis. And I'm not trying to be simple. I'm not trying to be chauvinistic. I'm not trying to be like, hey, look at these chicks. But seriously, a good metric on what kind of country you live in is if women are allowed to wear bikinis at the beach. And I don't want to live in a country that doesn't allow women to wear bikinis in public. I don't have to live in a country that has nude beaches. I'm not going all the way down to the perv branch here, but it's a great visual exhibition of individual rights if that's allowed. And then they take it the other direction. Not only you're not allowed to run around in a bikini, you have to have your head covered and all that. That's not endemic, or that's not specific to Iran. That's not what the Iranian people in majority would support if just the government would change tomorrow. We know Afghanistan's not too far away. Before they had their little revolution, it was common for Afghanistani women to go to college. There were a lot of guys in the urban areas, at least, wearing suits and ties. And so it almost seemed further along and in the 70s than it is now. I think both of those countries have regressed because of their form of government. So what do you do to fight against that, James? How on earth could you solve that problem with the missile? You can't. But look, recognize this. In what little experience I have that goes on at the individual level in other countries, generally speaking, the world loves America. They may not love your government. They may not love your leaders. They may not love your foreign policy or some of the drones that are flying overhead. But overall, they love this country. They love our movies. They love our music. They watch our TV shows. And that's not a trifling thing. That's huge. Do you know how many people overseas have been compelled to learn English because they're Star Wars fans and they want to see it undubbed? Do you know how many people have not just learned English, but learned about our culture, learned about how we talk and how cool we are and what life is really like by watching Seinfeld, by watching Cheers, by watching our movies, by listening to our music, watching our TV shows. And it doesn't go both ways. Name your favorite TV show from Iran. Name your favorite music artist from Iran. You don't know, but they know our music. They know who Elvis is. They know what Star Wars is. They know who Spider-Man is. So they also love our clothes and our fashion. They copy us on the other side of the planet. They don't copy our leaders. They don't love our government. They don't love our foreign policy. But you and me, they think we're cool, just generally speaking. I mean, there was the old trope about blue jeans in Eastern Europe in the 80s were like gold. I mean, that's the popular example, but it was true. They love our cars. What's your favorite Iranian car? What's your favorite Russian car? You ever owned a Russian car? You ever even name a Russian car? I can't name one. But over in China, I hear Buicks are considered highbrow. They're like classy. Like, ooh, you made it. You got yourself what? A Buick Enclave? Ooh, luxurious. But it's not just that. They love our brands. They love Coke. They love McDonald's. They love Starbucks. When I go visit a family in the Yucatan Peninsula down in South Mexico, when you're driving down the road, you see that. You see McDonald's, you see Starbucks, you see AutoZone, you see PetSmart. These people are copying us. It's our companies. It's our brands. It's what? I know I sound like a hack when I say this, but it's capitalism. What's your favorite fast food chain from Russia? What's your favorite fast food chain from Iran? What's your favorite fast food chain from any country that's not a Western capitalist country? Name any brand. Name any store. That's what I'm saying. We got to open up to Iran. If they had that in Iran, how could you hate us? If you were driving down the road in Tehran, I sure do hate America, but you're driving past a McDonald's and then a Subway and then a Starbucks and then an AutoZone and then a PetSmart and then a Best Buy and then you're drinking a Dr. Pepper. No, it sounds like you don't hate America. They don't. I would even go a step further. You know how like people are cutting the cord and getting rid of DirecTV and Dish Direct, or I don't know, whichever one advertises with us. We should just give them all free accounts. Come back in 5 years. How Americanized would these people be? And if that doesn't fix them all, I think the ultimate selling point, we should just lead with this. Bikinis. Would that make you want to overthrow a theocracy instantly if you hadn't seen a bikini your entire life? And then like Swedish bikini team walks by, or just like the Bud Light girls at some music festival. Heck, the staff down here there's a Hooters down here by the American Airlines Center. Just send like 4 of those girls over there. Theocracy would be toppled. So look, I don't think this has much of a military answer. I think this has sort of a cultural public relations approach. This is a branding issue. We don't need a military campaign. We need a PR campaign. And there's already a kernel in this society that loves us. Have you met Iranians? Well, I've only met Iranians that moved here. So probably they had a pre-existing bias toward liking America, but they love it. And of course, some of them are going to hate us, but how bad could you hate us? if you see a girl in a bikini walking by with a Starbucks in her Stanley mug. Who knows? Maybe she has like a Shiner Bock in her other hand. I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy out there. This is the path forward to peace. Love, not war. Almost sound like a hippie. Gross. All right, I'll take your calls on this next. Is my idea stupid? Do you have anything you would like to add to that? 800-288-9227. Your call's next. 800-288-WBAP. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Top story of the day. The back and forth between Israel and Iran. Well, I don't think it's over. We're expecting the next response to come from Israel. I'm asking you, what do you think the response should be? Do you think Biden and Biden's sanction program is enough? Should we even be interfering with the country's right to protect itself? A lot of people think the Middle East is just a powder keg ready to blow, and doing too much could set off World War III. But there's also a strong contingent of people who think that Biden running around looking like a Roomba bouncing off the walls and being old is inviting some of these challenges to our power overseas. What do you think? 800-288-WBAP. Paul in Fort Worth. You're on the James Show. What do you think?
Well, James, I've been listening to everybody saying, hey, we need to have peace talks and we need to stand down and they need to just suck it up and take it. When they flew 2 planes into our building, we spent 20 years making rocks into little pieces of sand, and we didn't care what the rest of the world thought. We just continued on. I don't think we have any right to tell Israel what to do. They want to go over there and bomb that living daylights out of Iran. They sent the missiles, just like Hamas. We wouldn't tolerate it for a minute.
Okay, but in this air quote attack from Iran on Israel, literally nobody died. So comparing it to 9/11 is kind of a stretch.
Very well. It very well could have been very devastating if we hadn't had the technology that we're able to shoot the missiles out of the air.
Right.
Then what happens?
But Iran knows that. I mean, Iran was smart enough to have that one drone fly in the tail of our other drone to get through our system and do something smart and actually kill 3 of our soldiers when they tried. When they're just sending UAVs to kamikaze into stationary targets and they all get shot down, it almost looks like Iran wasn't trying very hard there. And
I think James, they were testing us to see how many we have to flood them with before they can't stop them anymore.
I don't think you're wrong there. I think it was more of a test, but I also think that they know that if they really done anything more than blow up one of Bibi Netanyahu's lawnmower sheds and put a pothole in a airstrip by Beersheba, I think if they wanted to do more, they could have. I think maybe they're just flexing because they look weak after their general got killed 2 weeks ago, and they have to do some sort of PR thing because they're over there thinking, well, if we don't do something, then what's going to stop them the next time from doing something even worse?
I tell you what, we let them get away with it this time. It's going to be worse the next time. And the only thing they understand is brute force against them.
Fair enough. Thanks for calling in, Paul. I appreciate you calling the show. Josh in Saginaw, you're on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you think, Josh?
I agree with your commentary on that. And, I also agree that the people of Iran would love Baywatch and Big Macs versus a government that, if I'm not mistaken, 1 point gassed their own people. So, culturally, I mean, the people of Iran would love to be freed from this theocracy, but in the meantime, they're ruled with an iron fist, much like North Korea. So I think we should take a much stronger stance against Iran because they're a state sponsor of terrorism. I think we need to treat them like we did Japan after World War II. You don't get a military because you can't play nice.
Yeah, I like that. And you know what? Kudos. You get points, Josh, for bringing up when they gassed their own citizens. That was what, like 2011? It wasn't that long ago. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, right. Remember that weirdo-looking dude? We
had the red line in the sand. Remember, we had a red line. Don't cross it.
I think that was Bashar Assad in Syria. But for the Mahmoud Ahmadinejad thing, we saw the people fill the streets of Tehran and the major cities in Iran wanting to overthrow the Ayatollahs, wanting to undo the revolution. And it didn't stop. They gassed them first. They actually had to start shooting live rounds into those protests to break them up. But that showed you a hint of what I was talking about earlier. If only we would change their system of government, Iran could go from being an adversary to an ally overnight.
seems like we failed over and over and over again when we tried to reestablish these governments everywhere in the Middle East, though. I know it's worked over time, but the Arab Spring wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be either.
Well, where has it worked? It worked in South Korea. It worked kind of in Japan, where we've taken an almost theocratic government and changed it to like a more Western capitalist liberal society with a lowercase L, not an uppercase L.
Egypt is not as hostile as they used to be. They're, so.
I have hope. I'm a little more optimistic than most of the people that are calling today, Josh. I appreciate you calling in. Let's go to Joe in Grapevine. You're on the James Show. What do you think we should do? Hey, Joe.
I think that, yes, thank you for having me, sir. I believe what they should do is economic sanctions to start off with, and that means everybody doing it together, because all of those countries surrounding it in that area, it will impact them if this gets worse in both ways. Also tariffs. And if there's other countries such as China and Russia want to continue to fund them and help them out, then we in turn will start sanctions or tariffs on them. Just the same way, James, that President Trump did with Mexico and getting them to seal their borders. The same thing he did with China when it came time to be more fair in their trade, how they were taking advantage. We were buying more, then there was not as much going back to China as them buying us. So I believe that is so much important initially, because listen to 1987, September the 2nd, on Larry King, President Donald Trump. He pretty much is talked then, and anybody listen to it, as what he's wanting to do and has done in his presidency now. Also, one final thing, PR. First term, I believe, or it was the second year of President Trump's term, the Iranian people were taking to the streets, asking President Trump to help them. Of course, there was only so much we could do. We did some things, and not giving Iran money. The money that we gave back to them, they are supposed to be monitored on that money. It's for humanitarian reasons. Well, if Iran thinks, well, we'll just sit it out, we'll be good boys, we'll do that, but later when we get it, we're going to use that for other things. We have fought proxy wars, and being a former United States Marine, I know for a fact, because their fingerprint is all over it in Afghanistan and Iraq, they showed terrorists how to use improvised explosives to make bombs, to set traps. They showed them all of that because... All
right, Joe, let me cut in because I'm running out of time. I agree with the last part, but I do have some soft pushback on the first part, because your economic approach is the opposite of my economic approach. When you have sanctions, when you have high tariffs, you are discouraging the free flow of trade and goods and ideas and media and influence and brands between the two cultures. I think we need to start intermingling with them more. I think we need to open it up. And it's not just because I'm a free market capitalist pig, which I am proudly, by the way, but also because economic sanctions haven't worked. We've been doing that since 1979. We've been sanctioning the hell out of them. In fact, we'd sanctioned Cuba right down into the ground for half a century, and Fidel Castro died of natural causes in his 90s, still in power. Economic sanctions do not have a great history of working. They have a great history of being punitive, of, punishing people and making them mad, but actually making them want to join our side and overthrow their government. A lot of times, especially when you cripple them economically, that allows, autocrats to clamp down on the masses even more because they have fewer resources to fight back. The rest of that I totally agreed with, Joe, but that's the reason I'm saying maybe we should move to economically open up and away from this sanction thing, just because I don't think it's worked. Great call from Joe in Grapevine. What do you think? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. We'll continue with your calls next. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, Israel and Iran, they're still like boxers who have gone to their corner of the ring between rounds. There have been strikes that have gone back and forth. We have seen sort of an unprecedented nature. We've never before seen a direct attack on Israel from Iranian airspace, or from Iran itself. They've always worked through proxies up until now. And we're just trying to talk solutions here. And look, one of the reasons I wanted to spell out where I'm coming from first before I take calls is so you would understand when someone calls in and they're like, well, we just need to do more sanctions and sanction them even harder, that I wasn't just being a contrarian for contrarian's sake. This is something that get said on TV as if it has ever worked. And as a guy who has had to report on this to you for over 20 years, I've embarrassed myself by calling for sanctions before, and they turned out to not work. And it's not that I love the regime of Cuba. I don't love communism. I'm not sympathetic toward it at all. I hate it. But it didn't work. Embargoing Cuba, sanctioning Cuba did not work. Is there a place for sanctions sometime at some level? I mean, maybe. But show me where it's worked. Now, I have seen sanctions cause a lot of misery for the lowest in those societies that are being sanctioned. Fidel Castro didn't suffer. Fidel Castro still lived as a billionaire. Fidel Castro still had like a 270-foot yacht that he would just go goof around and do donuts around Caribbean islands when. Fidel Castro had all the creature comforts, all the luxuries and amenities modern life had to offer. But the poorest among them, the average Cuban, you know, the average Cuban's never had a glass of milk. They don't get to drink milk. They don't get it allotted to them. I mean, that's something that's reserved for the elites. These are weird things that you learn when you meet people that are either from Cuba or I had another friend, actually Varney, who's on the show sometimes. He actually has gone to Cuba and stayed there at length and has just crazy stories. He was the one who told me about the milk thing. His taxi driver was explaining to him. He's like, I've never drank a glass of milk. And Varney's like, really? Why not? You got a grocery store like right there that I went to. He's like, we don't get to go to that. Even if we did, we only get $18 a month to spend. You think we're going to spend it on milk? So I'm a skeptic of sanctions, and I know that's not something normal. Probably every other host on this station thinks sanctions are a good idea. And look, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I'm different. I looked at all the evidence. I looked at history, read a lot, just came to a different conclusion. Let's hear from you. Mark in Allen, you're on 820 AM now, 93.3 FM, WBAP. What do you think we should do, Mark?
Hey, James, thanks for taking my phone call. Right now, I don't think Israel should do anything at all. What a lot of people are forgetting is that Israel attacked Iran first by hitting the embassy. That's sovereign territory. That's just never been done before. And Iran retaliated, and I think maybe Israel should just leave it at that, or you are going to have a huge escalation, I think.
I mean, maybe they do like a little PR sort of fake attack like Iran did back to them. But I kind of get the same feeling that if that's what you want to do, we can just call it even and move away, because Israel killed one of their generals. And what did they do? They knocked out like the lawnmower shed behind Bibi Netanyahu's second house, and they put some potholes in an airstrip by Beersheba. Like, that's almost the sum total of destruction. Like, not one person died. And so if Iran wants to call that even, I think that's a victory for Israel, even if they stop right now. I understand the natural human reaction if someone slaps you in the face to not just sit there and slap them back. But if you've blown off their left arm with a point-blank shotgun slug and then they slap you in the face, I think you're getting away with one here.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you for taking my call, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for calling in. I really appreciate that. Hey, WeatherCon's happening next Saturday, April 27th. I'm going to be out there, but you're not going to go there to see me. You're going to go there to see WBAP meteorologist Brad Barton. He's going to be out there with the guys from WFAA, including Pete Delkus. But this is all about family stuff. I'm bringing my kiddo because he's actually expressed an interest in meteorology before. So there's going to be a lot of great exhibits for him. He's going to get to see what storm chasing vehicles look like. We're going to get free admission to the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Normally, it would cost me and my family over $60 to go see that, but it's going to be free April 27th. It's 9:30 to 1:30. You don't have to show up at 9:30. You can sleep in a little bit or come after the kiddo's soccer game and straggle in at like 11 or 12 or so, but it ends at 1:30. Come join us. And thanks for help putting all of this together and covering some of the expense to the Mullen & Mullen Injury Law Firm. It's WeatherCon, April 27th, Frontiers of Flight Museum at Dallas Love Field. We'll be right back with more James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.